Just gonna go live as we often do. It's live. It's Friday live show with Adam Quiney. That's me. Little do some of the live listeners know these are also the midweek episodes for the podcast, if you can believe that. I'm a little sleepy. I'm starting out sleepy, a little tad sleepy. Whoa, mute that. You be quiet. Adam video playing test run. I'm going to start by pouring this live tea pour because that is part of the show. Make sure you can see that there's a cup. Maybe even hear the sound of the tea pouring. That's a fun one. Get that in the cup. I've not been drinking much tea lately. I've been drinking a lot of decaf coffee. Tastes better with Bailey's in it, honestly. Well, here we are in the final, I guess this is the final Friday of August, and then we will be kind of, even though they technically tell you fall doesn't start till the 21st, we all know when did school start? It started in September, right after Labor Day. That's when fall begins. So I don't know about you, but I'm kind of planning a little bit of a fall reset for myself. Not a cleanse, so to speak, but like, oh, I've been sleeping in a bunch. I've been letting myself drink more than I might otherwise, been eating out a lot. And so I like to, come fall, I like to set sort of like a bit of a, all right, we're going to do a reboot. Going to kind of the way I once did when I went to university or school or whatever I was doing. So it's kind of cool. I'm going to do that come fall. What else? What else is good around this time of the year? Well, the fall reset. That's the big one. I don't know about where y'all are, but summer's been absolutely incredible here in Victoria. Not too hot, not too cold. Dry, but not unbearably so. All right, Grimby, you can come in. You come in, and I get my little door closing stick. That's this, because this little dog keeps coming in, and then I have to keep closing my door. So that's how we do it. That's the way that works. And then he sits here right beside me going, What is happening? What have I done? I can't get out now. I bought myself a new toy. This is what it looks like. It's this, the one wheel. You stand on it and then it levers. So the one wheel is they call it a PEV, a personal electronic, see, he wants to get out now, a personal electronic vehicle. And there's probably a couple, you might have seen a one wheel. It looks like a skateboard with a giant wheel in the center. And then the other type of personal electronic vehicles that are quite popular are EUCs, electric unicycles, where you literally stand and there's a wheel right here. You just have two plates you stand on, and these people kind of like move around like that. An electronic unicycle is safer and can go faster than a one wheel because there's the main risk on an electric unicycle is user error or machine failure. You know, if the machine breaks down, then you're moving, you know, at this rate, you got to kind of steer yourself out. And the nice thing is, even if the machine dies on a unicycle, you can kind of just like, as long as you're balanced, you just go straight until you can jump off or do whatever. A one wheel works a little differently. It's a balanced board over top of this wheel. And the way it balances itself is as you lean like this, the engine recognizes that, the computer system recognizes that, and speeds up to bring the board back underneath you. So you steer it, it's almost like magic. You kind of lean on the front and then it speeds you up, gets you level again, and then you're moving along, and then you lean back and it slows down to bring the board back underneath your feet. So the danger of the one wheel is if you push the machine too much, if you go past its limitations, it's only got so much strength, the nose catches the ground because it can't speed up enough to get the board back underneath you, and then you get what's called a nosedive. You go, and then you fly off the board. This is definitely the more dangerous of the devices, but it's so much cooler. It's way cooler. And what the one wheel provides that I don't find an electric unicycle provides is like an experience like snowboarding. And I really miss that experience. And so you kind of get this feeling like you're carving. If you've ever snowboarded, it feels really beautiful being on powder, carving up the slope. And a one wheel really provides that experience on roads or on all sorts of all terrain. Like one of the things that's really popular to do is to take it on single track bike trails, which I've not had the guts to do yet. I'm still very much a rookie, like an old man on this thing. It was super cool. I've really been enjoying getting out and exploring where I live in a new way. Okay. What else do I want to talk about before we start here? I don't think there's that much. I'll show you this cool amethyst. Look at this neat little stone. Bay and I went to a rock and gem show. This is a palm stone. They've polished that back part. Um, we love the way rocks look. Beautiful rocks are beautiful, and they make us feel good. And so we went to a rock and gem show and bought a bunch of stuff. We'd kind of wanted to get like a nice big piece of a nice big geode for somewhere in our house. But the other one I'll show you, this is just for the visual, just for the people on live right now, is this piece of labradorite. Look how blue that is. Isn't that crazy? I've never seen a piece of labradorite that shiny blue. And then of course you turn it and it becomes gray and boring. And then you come back and you're like, wow. But that is an incredible color. What a beautiful stone. These sit in front of me here. All right. Well, let's start talking about the real shit. I've got a bunch of topics over here. I'll start by talking about a new scam that I notice is happening to me a lot via my phone, and about creating art with this stuff, as well as like LinkedIn and stuff like that. So here's how the scam works, is that, well, let me take one step back. There's a number of ways you can attack someone in terms of like security. The biggest one would be just figure out some exploit on the phone, and I have not updated my phone. Like if I've not updated my phone, you just directly attack my phone. Oh, there's an exploit. They haven't patched this vulnerability up. Bam, we attack it, we get in. That is one way to do it. But often the easier way is what's called social engineering. Let me just find the book I'm going to reference here too. Kevin Mitnick, Social Engineering book. There it is, The Art of Deception. Boom, boom. And I will put this in the comments here because this is a cool book. So social engineering is the art of just manipulating people, getting information from them that then allows you to attack their devices, to break their security, to create vulnerabilities, blah, 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 blah. So Kevin Mitnick, whose book I've put a link to in the comments there, was kind of like a hacker in the early days when I was going through computers and coming of age. Kevin was this hacker who basically was like a pariah. He was kind of like, wow, hacking's new. We don't really understand it. Let's throw the book at this guy. And Kevin Mitnick got thrown in jail. And upon coming out of jail, he did what a lot of white collar kind of cyber crime people tend to do, which is he turned to the side of good and started becoming a security consultant because he's got all this experience. And so The Art of Deception, that book, is all about social engineering. How do we protect ourselves from, and how do we learn to recognize attempts to social engineer us? So the new scam I notice is happening a lot is one of social engineering. And the way it looks is you get a text message on your phone that you don't recognize. So here's one from, the number is 1-515-329-2476. I have no idea who that is. It's not a real person. And they send a message. This one says, "Hello, Lisa, it's me, Rachel, and I'm in Canada now." I'll read another one to you. This one says, "Hi, I'm Annalie. I left your number at the last party. Sorry, I just remembered to contact you now. How are you doing?" They already know, I assert, they already know you're not the person that they're messaging. That's not actually, they're not looking for Annalie or Rachel or anything like that. What they're waiting for is you to respond and say, "Oh, I think you've got the wrong number." And when you, then they go, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that." And you say, no problem at all." At which point they say something that is kind of like an opener for the conversation. So they might say like, "I'm really struggling to meet this person, blah, blah, blah." And you are kindly going to just be like, "Yeah, I totally get that." The follow-up then is, "You seem like a really kind person," or "You seem nice," or "Thank you for being so polite. May I know your name?" And then what you do, in theory, is you give them your name. They're like, "Yeah, whatever. My name's Adam. Be gone." At which point, now they can connect your phone number with your name, and then they can build from there. So then someone else from another random number can message you and go, "Hi, Adam, this is blah, 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 blah. We are practicing doing a delivery." So what happens is that as they get more and more information from you, they can start to build a bit of a profile for you, and then they can use that to establish a sense of familiarity and ask you for more information. "Hey, Adam, this is UPS. We're about to deliver. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Oh, I don't have a delivery coming. Oh, how odd. Let us check our records. What's your address?" Now they've got your address, your phone number, and your name, and then they can build from there. So all of this is part of the way that social engineering works. So you begin with just a tiny little bit, and then you build from there until they've got like a profile that they can start to use to attack your device. They can start to do things like find your credit card number and then reach the credit card company and give all this information that you've unwittingly handed over to them. It's quite clever and kind of devious. And so, one, you want to be aware of this stuff. Oh, that's how this attacking is working. By the way, I see 2 people viewing. Tell me who you are. Say hello, it's me, just so that I know who you are. I personally find this stuff boring. You know, it's kind of like how would I describe it? It's like it's almost like a not price of life, but like the way life is. There is going to be crime. We can't eradicate crime. There's going to be greed. There's going to be war. There's going to be all of these different parts. Like, no matter what, we're going to have a beautiful world in front of us and mosquitoes are going to bite us. These are just aspects of life that are there. And so we can do a couple of things. We can get really mad at these people. We can report every single one of them, but it's not going to make a difference, right? That would be like going outside and getting bitten by a bunch of mosquitoes and then making it your life's purpose to kill every single mosquito you find. And yeah, that might cut down on malaria or something like that, but it's not going to be that like fruitful. It's not really what I don't think you'd want to make your life about. Hey, Manete, what you're describing just happened to me the other day. Aha, right? They're all doing that. Hello, Secret Anna. Nice to see you. It's me, Rochelle, from that party. So my approach, well, actually, let me give you one more place, and then I'm going to combine these by talking about creating art in our lives. So one, that's one of the things that just happens. It's like a gadfly, a mosquito biting at us, and we're like, fuck off. Why do I keep getting these stupid messages from people that claim they're someone that they're not? The other thing that's really common are people on LinkedIn trying to pitch to me to get me to buy stuff. And these people are hilarious because they always begin the conversation saying like, "Hey, you seem like you're doing awesome stuff. There's always some entry. How's it going?" And then the conversation very quickly shifts into them ultimately trying to pitch you. I don't know what it's like if you work for a company, but I know that if you work in an industry that is entrepreneurial at its core and tends to have a lot of people that are struggling, you're going to have a bunch of people trying to sell the solution to that problem. That's just the way it goes. And this has been the case for the decade and change that I've been working in coaching. Right from the very start, I would get requests for conversations with people so they could sit down with me and find out like what's the one thing you struggle with as a coach? What's the solution you could have? And of course, most people in this profession that aren't particularly far along in their development, they're like, the thing I'm struggling with is I don't have enough clients. It's hard to find people that are clients. And if I could just have enough leads that are qualified, then that wouldn't, that would solve all my problems. It wouldn't. It would just push their problems further down the road, but they're not aware of that. So I get a lot of those kind of mosquitoes too. People that are like ostensibly wanting to connect on LinkedIn and add value to their network, but really what they want to do is they want to add value by selling me their product or by having me go to their webinar or whatever. And that's another thing where I could get very angry about the fact that these people are doing this. I could attack them. I could put them in their place by being like, "Fuck you for pitching to me," or something like that. But again, all that does is it creates anger and frustration and annoyance in my life. I end up bringing this energy of annoyance out into the world, and whatever I'm giving out to the world is the same thing I'm bringing inwards. So what I like to do is to create art with it. And before we go any further, we don't even have to really think about the how to, like, how do I create art with this? the first place is just to really start from that being our stand. So when we sit with like this idea, like, these hackers, they're horrible human beings and they're taking advantage of people, which they are, that's true. We could get really mad. And then the question asked is like, what am I standing for? Right? I'm standing for righteous vindication. I'm standing for like punishing people that do blah, 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 blah. When we start to come from an internal stance of like, how do I create art with this? It opens up a whole new set of pathways for us. And for me, the way I like to create art with this stuff is to like play. How can I play with this? How can I not really make this very significant and, sort of see this as like, oh, this is just a part of life. If you are in a career or a profession where there's a lot of people struggling and a lot of people that don't really, innocently, they don't really understand what really creates success, you're going to see a whole bunch of people trying to create a business out of that. That's okay. That's just something they're going to do. So now that we've established that that's just going to be there, how do I want to be with that? I want to create art with that. I want to have fun with it. I want to play with that. And so I'm always looking for ways to do that. And I'm looking to do that because it makes life more fun for me. So how do we create fun with these people that are text messaging me? We just go along with the story. We see how far we can lead them down a path. What can I tell them? Can I try to get them to reveal some details about their life? No, they're unlikely to, but like, can I relate to this like an improvisational game? Now that I know they're lying, where can I walk this line with them? What can I do with them that might be amusing to me? With LinkedIn people, what can I do that would start to have me laugh? Where can I take this conversation? How can I move this or manipulate this? Or what kind of questions can I ask? What can I do that might have me burst out laughing while I'm sitting in front of my computer? And the beautiful thing about this stand for our life is if you start to approach more and more of your life from this place, more and more of your life becomes filled with laughter and joy and fun and play. And even the parts of your life that you once cursed and said, damn you, why is this happening, becomes something you can create enjoyment with. And then having a life that's fun and playful and delicious and exciting, that stops being something you have to kind of arrange the circumstances of your life very meticulously to enable. What I mean is you don't have to live a life where it's like, I love having fun, and in order to do that, I have to make sure that this looks like that, and that only these sort of people are talking to me, and that all of that is handled, and that this is all managed, and that people don't bother me in the middle of my fun time. That's a very limiting kind of experience of fun. Your fun is entirely at the effect of your circumstances. Instead, what becomes available is like, oh, I'm committed to creating fun. I'm a stand for art and play in my life and as I come into contact with life. Great. And when we start to do that, we become what you could call at cause for a life that is fun, as opposed to at the effect of our circumstances. My belief, upon sipping some tea, hey Rafa, it's nice to see you, brother. My belief is that, well, first of all, we get to choose whatever we want to make our life about, but one of the things I make life about is creating art. How can I create art with whatever is showing up? Trump's doing something annoying. How can I create art with that? 50 million people keep telling me that they know the solution to the problems I'm not even aware I have. How can I create art with that? My hair looks ridiculous today. How can I create art with that? None of this is right or wrong. It's a more fun context for approaching life than, that sound. Why are people this way? Why does the world look like that? That's not so much fun. So I've been creating a lot of art lately. I had one person, this was really fun, where this person was like sending me photo. It was a scammer, of course. They sent me this photo of a Japanese girl doing a piece because that way they can try to hook a man, right? Oh, cute girl, he'll jump on board. I'm like, no. And in the conversation with them, I got them to the point where they called me boring. I kept asking them questions and they were eventually like, you're boring. And that was the last I heard from them. I was like, yes, I got them to choose out of this conversation. This is awesome. One place that is really worth going and checking out, I'm making sure that it's still here as a website. Yes, this is an old school website. It looks like Web 1.0, but it's worth checking out, is 419eater.com. 419 is the Nigerian, I guess, criminal code for like wire fraud, uh, mail scam, that sort of thing. And so 419 Eater is a website that captures all of these examples of people doing what's called scam baiting. Scam baiting is where you know you have someone that sent you a fraudulent email naming themselves Prince Ebo or whatever. You just happen to have been someone I've been looking forever who's inherited $5 billion. You just need to do X, Y, and Z, and then you'll be rich. So it's a 419 scam is what they're called. And scam baiters respond to these emails, always from a safe email, and then see how far along they can draw this out. How much of these scammers' time can we waste? How ridiculous can we get them to do stuff? And so if you go to that site, the photo gallery is amazing. They've gotten these scammers to like take photos of themselves with like kissing a fish with a piece of bread on their head and like the most ridiculous things. And it's a beautiful thing because as these scam baiters are wasting the time of the scammers, that's taking away from the scammers' energy to put towards someone who might legitimately give them money and like be bilked by these people. So it's like it's kind of like a beautiful, hilarious sort of growth that comes out of scamming. So I really recommend that site. It's hilarious, really fun to check out. Okay, well, we should get into like the hardcore ontological conversation now. I've been yakking for silliness. It's time to yak for leadership. What are my topics? What juicy asked topics do we have? We've got a bunch of questions from people. Anna says James Veitch did a few hilarious sketches on that too. I'm not familiar with who that person is, Anna. Is he European? Do you and or do you have a link, a YouTube link? If so, please share it. I'd love to learn more. So Tibby is our champion this week. Tibby brought about four questions for us, four topics. I'm excited. They're really awesome topics. So thank you so much, Tibby. It's such such an act of generosity when you provide those. I really appreciate it. So we'll start with Tibby and then we'll interlace our other ones. So Tibby's first question is, let's bring this over here so I can kind of sort of look at the camera as I'm doing this. Tibby says, people keep chasing the next big goal, the next level of success, and always feel unhappy until they create real fulfillment. But I was wondering, once people have created an amazing life that they had always hoped for, what has some of them, myself included, continue on the journey instead of settling down and being content? Isn't that just another example of chasing after more fulfillment, striving, basically? And how can we support people in creating possibility if they are in that fulfilled and content and everything is amazing state? So super good question, Tibby. Thank you for that. And what Tibby's effectively asking is this, like a conundrum, where first of all, where a lot of us humans kind of start out, and I see Anna's put the sketch by James in the YouTube in the comments, so click that if you're interested after the live show's done. Where people tend to start out, because this is the water the world is swimming in, is one of striving for the next goal. I need to get to the next goal. I need. And this is a function of, this is a function of our human nature. The way humans are built, you could say, is that we have this drive to the next thing. And there's a few reasons evolutionarily for that. The first is just on a biological evolutionary kind of perspective. Once you've achieved a certain level, if you just rest there, eventually evolution's going to catch up to you and some other species is going to outperform you in the environment. What that means is sort of like if like a apex predator, let's say an eagle, gets to the point where they're like, oh, sweet, I can catch everything I need to eat. I don't need to do anything. And they get very comfortable. Then what's going to happen is the prey eventually will naturally evolve or die. They'll either evolve to be able to better run away from the eagle, or they'll die out. They'll become extinct because the eagles will hunt them to extinction because they're just so much better at catching them. And as the prey becomes better, eventually the eagles now start to die off because they're hungry. And so there's an evolutionary pressure for them to adapt and evolve. None of this is conscious. I want to be clear. It's not like the eagles sit down in a conference with each other and are like, shit, these little mice are really outperforming us. What are we going to do? And then they draw up, on their blackboard or their Zoom call, like open up a Zoom whiteboard. They're like, better wings, landing gear, sharper beak. And then, of course, you've got one eagle who's like got the mustache filter on, is joking, friggin' Ron the eagle joking around. Get out of here, Ron. Anyhow, that's not happening. What happens is this happens naturally. As resources become scarce, there's a natural competition, and the sort of mutations that are best suited to thrive amongst that fierce competition are the ones that tend to continue to propagate their genes. It's actually quite miraculous if you really understand how evolution works. It's quite an incredible thing that we just naturally evolve towards kind of being best fit for the niche that we're in. Anyhow, that's a bit of a different conversation. The point here is our biology has a built-in drive to continue to go beyond the point of contentment. That's part of the human condition. And you can see that in all aspects of who we are. Like, there's no need for humans to go to the moon. And yet we were called to go there. We were compelled. Speaking globally, not politically. There's no need for us to create an iPhone. We could have been totally content just not doing that, just watching TV. And yet we have this drive, this call forward. You can also see this tendency in the way our desire works. Like, to desire something is to create a gap between where you are currently and what you desire for. If I see a woman that I'm attracted to and I desire for her, there's now a gap. I don't yet have her. I'm not yet in relationship with her. I'm not yet dating her. All of that is currently elusive to me. And so there's a gap. And that gap calls us forward. It calls us to create what's next to achieve that. So that's a little bit the way humans just are, full stop. Now, that gap can create a bit of a problem. The gap between the desire you are able to feel and where you currently are equates to heartbreak. It can be a very mild form of heartbreak, but it's heartbreak nonetheless. There's something I want and there's something I don't have. There is a place I could be and the place I'm currently am, and there's a gap between those two. It's heartbreak. You could call it whatever you want. You don't have to go with heartbreak if you don't want. You can call it tension or like angst or like neediness or whatever. I'm using heartbreak because I think that's a good term for it. And so we are not trained in being very good, being very facile at being with heartbreak. So what tends to happen is one of two things. One is we become very attached, fixated on closing this gap, achieving what we desire. So this is a little bit of the first part of what Tibby's talking about, which is there's this desire for whatever's next, whatever it happens to be, that's almost innately part of being a human, and we work to close that. And then as soon as we work to close that, there's a new desire, right? We chase after the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. We strive continuously. And so down this path, life kind of looks like continually chasing after the next goal. We achieve that goal, and then we go to the next one. We don't particularly like this striving. We just like the sort of relief almost from the heartbreak that happens momentarily when we get that thing that we've been chasing. I've achieved it. So good. I finally arrived. What's the next thing? So it becomes a very short-term, like shot to the arm, like a hit, like, this feels good. And then, all right, but now that I need the next hit of my drug. The other side of this is where, because we don't have much capacity to be with the heartbreak between our desire and where we are, is we eliminate our desire. So we become, this is the other side of what Tibby's talking for, we kind of become fulfilled and content and everything is amazing. That sounds pretty good, first of all, right? Fulfilled, content, and everything is amazing. Incredible. The trouble with that is it's not quite, it's not actually like true to the human condition. Because the human condition, remember, along with like every species really, is for us to seek beyond where we currently are. That's the nature of having desire. If you have desire, we don't sort of desire like, I've got this phone here and my whole desire is about having this phone and oh my God, that's not really desire, right? Desire is sort of the grass is greener on the other side. That aphorism really speaks to the nature of desire. Desire is about what we don't already have. If we make that feeling that desire causes for us bad, then of course what we're going to seek to do is just be totally content and everything's good and I don't want for anything. And what that does is it alleviates us from some of the burdens, some of the consequences of having desire. We don't have to feel the heartbreak of what we don't have. We don't have to feel that other side of things where we fully are, we're almost obsessed with our desire and our life becomes about chasing that. Like, oh, I don't have to do that. I don't have to have that. We don't have to make sacrifices. We don't have to give up on much of anything because we can just sort of stay floating in the lake that we're sitting in, have another beer, relax. Life's pretty good. So that's the other extreme. And these are the two extremes people tend to swing back and forth on. If you've ever read The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari by Robin Sharma, I'm not a big fan of Robin's writings and books. Some people really love it. What I find happens when they read these books and really what the content is about is like at the start, it's like a lawyer character who's super successful and really driven and blah, 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 blah. And then some catalyst happens and then they swing all the way to the other side. They don't desire for anything and they can just be content and blah, blah, blah. So one, there's nothing wrong with either of these sides. Both of these are perfectly fine ways to go through life. There's consequences to them. And if we want, there's more available. They don't have to be where we stop, but if they are where we're stopped or where we've, thank you. That scared me. There's a guy dropping off a parcel for us and he just shouted through the window. I'm like, where am I hearing audio from? Anyhow, he gets to be on the podcast today. Welcome. What was my train of thought? Oh, yes, these are totally acceptable places for us to be kind of at. There's nothing wrong with being here. As soon as we try to make them wrong, like I shouldn't be here, that creates something kind of odd because it suggests like intellectually I should get out of this human condition. I shouldn't be here. I should be somewhere else. And then we just try to get somewhere else because we feel that that's bad. It becomes an intellectual endeavor instead of something driven by our heart. Cami, I'm just reading what Cami's written here, which is, could we also consider under the human condition that we are always needing to expand, consciously speaking? Yeah, I mean, that's more of it, right? Cami's speaking to the same sort of thing. There's just this natural human tendency to expand, to grow beyond what is already here. And I would assert that's the nature of life itself. Life is always seeking to grow past the point that it's currently at. So, now that we've laid all of that groundwork, we can come back to what Tibby's written, which is, what is it about people that has them pursuing more transformation, more growth, more development? Isn't that just a form of seeking more fulfillment, chasing the next goal? So it certainly can be. And a lot of people get engaged in this kind of practice with their coach. They work with a coach. Typically not an ontological coach, that is to say, not a coach working on their being. They start working with a coach that styles themselves like a business coach, a marketing coach, a branding coach, a million-dollar coach, a money coach. And what that coach supports the person to do is to create more of something. And so they engage with that coach and it just becomes like, great, I've made $1 million, but now I should make $2 million. And it becomes just on a treadmill. They're chasing the next thing. The artistry, the mastery available in being a human is being able to sit in the tension that exists between allowing ourselves to be totally content with where we are and at the same time to have a desire for something beyond that. What tends to happen in our world is we break those two things apart. So either I can be made a slave to my desire, where I have to chase the next goal, the next thing, or I kill my desire and I just live in contentment of the present moment. So that kind of two stereotypical examples of this would be on the one end, corporate kind of executives, CEOs, financial investment traders, killing themselves, working crazy hours, doing cocaine all the time, Wolf of Wall Street kind of stuff, right? They're just more consumptive. There's never enough. That's the one extreme. And then the other extreme would be, I often see this in like yogic communities where there's sort of like, I'm okay with everything exactly as it is. I can't make a lot of money doing what I do as a yoga teacher, and I'm totally fine with that. And this is a beautiful life. And it is, but often if you spend a lot of time with those people, there's sort of like a detachment from their human desire. There's sort of a lack of hunger to them. And we wanted to get into sort of like a little more confronting terms, we'd say like there's almost a lack of fuck in them, that fuck energy, that like the tiger kind of energy, that's gone. And so there's nothing wrong with either of those sides, even though we may have judgments about either one of them. They're just places that people end up when we've become unable to be in the tension of loving things exactly as they are and desiring for something beyond it. So now Tibby's asking, well, isn't seeking the next thing just more chasing after fulfillment? It could be. It certainly could be if the coach you're working with is only supporting you to focus on results. But where a good coach, a good leader, a good transformational guide, if you like, is going to work with you is one, are you connected to your desire? Like, do you actually have desire? Are you hungry for something? And if not, there's an impact to that. We become fat and bloated when we're not able to be with our own hunger. That's a bit of a problem plaguing North America. There's not, we've kind of gotten to this point where we don't there's so much abundance we've created and amassed, frankly, and sort of clawed towards us that we are fat and bloated and lacking the hunger that's a fundamental part of artful living. So if the coach someone's working with, if the leader, if the spiritual guide is only supporting them to chase after results, that is going to become just the next chasing thing. What I'm looking at with my people is, what are they wanting to create? Great. And now who are they wanting to be in the creation of that? Along that journey, how are they wanting to show up in their life? What is the sort of way of being that they want their life to look like, such that they get the opportunity to create. Thanks, Andrew. Andrew's complimenting me on my shirt. The people we're working with get the opportunity to create beauty and art and all of what they want from life, the whole journey of the way there. As someone connected with your desire and feeling that longing to move towards something away from where you currently are, how do you want to be in that process? That's a question you get to ask yourself, as opposed to desire bad, I'm just going to shove that over there. Hey, Mia, good morning, good evening, good whatever it is. It's good anyhow. We know that. So that's the first state is yeah, it's very easy and people fall out of coaching for this reason, because most coaches haven't really cracked this egg themselves. A lot of people that are doing things like digital marketing and stuff, the ones that are successful have successfully created a bunch of money, and now they're going to sell to you the formula to create a bunch of money. And then there's no spiritual journey in that. There's no well, I shouldn't say that, but there's no being based work in that. There's no deeper work to get you to the point where you're like, wow, I love life exactly as it is, and now what do I want to create from here? It's worth sharing here that there's a process I find a lot of the people I work with move through. Initially, they're consumed by their desire, or it's like their ass is on fire. Like life is highly successful in some ways, and it's a mess in other ways. And they're like, we got to work on the mess. Or, I got to get the money, right? I got to make the money. Their desire, right? And usually in about 6 months, we kind of move through that. They create the money, they address the problem, they put their ass is no longer on fire. And then where they find themselves is almost like a long, dark tea time of the soul. It's this void-like experience where they're no longer pushed towards something. They're no longer trying to run away from an experience. They're no longer trying to overcome this thing that's bad in their life. So they're no longer pushed forward into their life by something they're afraid of or by something that's not going right or anything along those lines. And where that leaves them is they're like, Adam, I don't know what to do. I'm content, but now what? And the beauty at that point is now you get to choose anything you want. Now there's nothing telling you what you should or shouldn't or have to or don't have to do. You fully get to create your art like an artist does. You are looking at a blank canvas. And that is very confronting for most of us, because for most of us, our entire lives, that has not actually been available. What's been available is, you need to get the A+. You're not making enough money. You're not going to succeed in retirement. And then we run as fast as we can to outrun that fear, to try to create the results that'll ensure that doesn't become true, which of course just keeps us on the treadmill. And so that long, dark tea time of the soul is this point where the people I'm working with reach where they're kind of like, there's nothing forcing me to do anything. I don't have to do anything. Now what? and they kind of just wander around listlessly for a while, waiting for something to show up to force them to do it. But because of the transformation they've created, that stuff doesn't have as much sticking power as it once did. And eventually, the people that really learn to start thriving in this new way eventually get to the point where they're like, I guess I'll just choose anything. I don't know what I want. I'll choose something. I'll start learning guitar. And then they try that and they're like, I didn't like that. I'll try something different. And that's the point where our life starts to be about whatever we create it about. Our purpose gets to be whatever we choose as our purpose. And that's a beautiful place, beautiful state to be in. Here's the last part that I'm going to speak to on what Tibby's asked, which is he says, how can we support people in creating possibility if they are in the fulfilled, content, and everything is amazing state? So to support someone with something, they have to want it. I can't support you to ride a bike if you're not interested in riding a bike. All of those people that we were talking about earlier that are like leaping out of buildings to land on top of me on LinkedIn, I help people just like you 10x their revenue, splat. They're trying to support me and probably a bunch of other people with something that I'm not looking for support in. I don't need that kind of support, but they're actively trying to push it. The other one that comes often these days, or it has maybe less so lately, is crypto. Hey, I'm all about crypto. Have you thought about it? No, I'm not really interested in it. Oh, you totally should be. Why? Oh, because you can make a ton of money. No, no, thanks. I'm doing just fine financially. I'm not interested in chasing after money. Well, you should give it. They're trying to like force support on me when I'm really clear not interested in it. So the start of Tibby's question here, how can we support people in creating possibility? Does the person want to create possibility? And wanting to create possibility, it presupposes, it's sort of like inherent in that is where I am is good, and I want to get clear on what could be available beyond that. And when someone is in the like, I'm fulfilled and everything is perfect kind of state, our job is to like be okay with that, not to need them to be anywhere else. If someone in their life is like if I met someone at a networking event and I was just talking to them like, what are you up to? And they're like, you know, I'm just living my life and it's amazing and things are great. And there's nothing I want for, I'd be like, cool. I might have some curiosity, like, how is that? Like, I love how my life is, but there's also like the next thing I'm creating. What's it like for you? Do you have one of those? No, I just want life to stay like this forever. Cool. How's that going? Fascinating, interesting. So I might be curious about it, but I'm certainly not going to try to get that person to like leave their current state to try to figure out something they want that would require them to move off of it. That they have to decide. And the way they would decide that would be, well, it'd be a decision on their part. They would come to the conclusion like, okay, things are nice and chill, but I actually want to create more in my life than just having life be nice and chill. Then there's an opportunity to support them with that. So the best way we can support someone is by doing our own work to alleviate our neediness to have them kind of be a yes to our support. In the early days, a lot of coaches are like these heat-seeking missiles. I was too. We're like, how do I find out what you need from me so I can sell it to you? And then you'll give me money, and then I'll be able to survive. And we want to let that go. And when people are like totally content, we want to affirm that, and we won't be curious about it. Because it is kind of interesting, right? Like, wow, that's so fascinating. The questions that come through my mind when I hear from someone they're totally content and they don't want for anything is like, cool. So what are you creating from that place? What's next for you? Or is it just that you want life to just like be frozen in amber like this? Like, where do you see yourself going from here? Like, these are questions I would ask of myself if I arrived at that place. So I think that's the best thing we can do is really honor where they are, not need them to shift off of it, and then allow our curiosity to explore with them. Andrew writes, I think that's been one of the most challenging things for me going into this work, because that I'll often see problems or areas that people are struggling with, and in my mind, I think that a person would want to shift what's happening. One of the things I'm realizing is that it's up to them to make that commitment. As much as I can want that for a person, they've got to choose in. Yeah, it's exactly right, Andrew. That's the case in coaching and in leadership. I can't want something more than someone else. Like I can't want something for someone more than they do. And in the early days of coaching, a lot of people that aren't very well trained get burnt out in this profession because they're like trying to give the client so much and the client's not actually that interested. The client's words suggest they are. They're like, oh, I really want this, but they don't do anything week after week to move it forward. And so then the coach is like calling them, sending them emails once a week, once a night to like get the person to do stuff. And it's like, yo, this person doesn't want to do this stuff. It's like that book. He's just not that interested in you. For the client, it's like, yo, you're just not that interested in this goal. You say you are. I really get that you believe that. But if we take a look at how you're being, you're not that interested in it. You're not doing very much. I'm doing a lot of work. I'm going to stop doing that. The funny thing about coaching and leadership is it's way less work than we think it is. But to get to that place, we have to confront our own stories about our own value that has us put so much energy forward in the first place. Silly humans. Okay, I'm gonna read Sam's question here. She says, "Hey Adam Quiney, hey Sam McAllery. I've recently listened to your Stretch Point episode. That's an episode of the podcast. And she says, you gave examples of how a coach could support a leader through an experience of being out of their depth. But I was wondering whether you have any thoughts for a leadee, the person being trained, to support their leader." So Marete says, this is how I feel with teaching too. Totally. Teaching is very much that case, with the added challenge that you're teaching inside of a system that imposes sort of like a degree of standards you must kind of bring children up to, which is quite challenging. Teaching's a bit, that context is a bit outside of the idea, like we can't make someone do something they don't want to do. I mean, we can, but it's not going to have much of an impact. So anyhow, Sam's asking, like, what about the situation where I'm being developed, my leadership's being developed by a leader, and my leader, I think what Sam's asking is like, my leader's out of their depth. What do I do as someone being developed by them? So that's a really tricky place to be. The first and most important place when we are being developed by a leader is the act of granting leadership to that person. So Werner Erhard, who you may have heard me quote a few times, says our leadership is granted to us by those we lead and those that are leading us. What that means is I cannot lead someone if they are not willing to empower me that way. If I'm trying to do that, like if I'm trying to lead someone and the person's like, fuck you, what they'll do is they'll subtly sabotage me, they'll undermine me, they'll say yes to me, but they'll actually like, I'm not going to do this. They'll be insubordinate. They'll do all of the sort of things. And what's happening is that I'm trying to impose leadership on them and they're not a yes to it. So we can't lead someone that's not willing to empower us that way. And likewise, our leadership is granted by those that lead us. So like, if the person above me is sort of taking away the ability for me to lead, like perhaps micromanaging, for example, makes it really hard for me to lead. So we have to honor that our leadership is given to us. It's not something we take. And it's certainly not something that's granted to us by a position in a hierarchy. That, ironically, that's how we most relate to leadership, but that's actually not how it works. So our leadership is granted to us by those that we lead and those that are leading us. So in this situation, we're talking about the person, the leadee, and the leader. The leader is the person leading someone. The leadee is the person being led. If we are a leadee and we want to support our leader, the person leading us, the first thing we can do is we can grant them their leadership. We can empower them as a leader. And what's challenging about that is that we will always, now and forever, be able to point to our leader and point out to them the stuff they're doing wrong. Hey, Alexandra, long time no see. I can look up and I can say, my leader sucks. This is why they suck. This is the stuff that they're doing wrong. And then I can use the stuff I've pointed out as a reason not to entrust their leadership. I'm not going to listen to them when they ask me to stop using my sense of humor. They're always making jokes, right? That's a way that I undermine their leadership, even though they may have absolute gold for me. That's challenging in leadership. That's challenging when we're having our leadership developed because it's so easy to point back and say, no, they're doing that thing. They're a hypocrite. I'm not going to listen to them. And ultimately what that does is it lets me off the hook of leaning into my resistance, of receiving the feedback I have. So one of the most powerful stances that we can take when we are a leadee, and in truth, anytime you're committed to leadership, you're also committed to being a leadee, to having your leadership developed. One of the most powerful stances we can take is, I will find the gold. I will find the gold. So my leader he cracks wise 24/7 in the meetings. It's so much of his stupid sense of humor. And the moment I do it, he invites me to practice bringing a little more of my seriousness. I will find the gold in that. Where can I see the truth that my sense of humor is actually detracting from my leadership? Where can I, noticing what happens with my leader, where can I look for myself doing that same thing now that he's given me that feedback and put that into practice? My boss, she's always late. She's constantly late. And yet she's coming at me and asking me to be punctual and to notice how I'm creating lateness on my teams. How can I take that? How can I find that gold? So in that stand, that committed stance to find the gold in whatever we're provided, a couple things happen. One, we free ourselves from that getting off the hook part, right? We're actually putting ourselves on the hook. We're saying, I'm not going to let myself off the hook by pointing to my boss and pointing out what they're doing wrong. I am going to be committed to leadership. I'm going to model the thing I want my boss to be modeling. I want my boss to take on their leadership. How do I do that? By taking on my leadership. I model it. I take everything that they provide me, every piece of feedback, and I find the gold, not because I'm doing it for them, but because I'm doing it for me. I'm committed to leadership. I will find the gold. When we do this, we lend trust to our leader. We start to receive their feedback from a place of like, this person has gold for me and I'm going to trust it. And that it does two things. One, it grants leadership to your leader. So even if they're out of their depth, it kind of empowers them being out of their depth, which is crucial. A leader who's got their feet firmly under them and has everything figured out probably isn't leading, because leadership is into the unknown. And there's always going to be a degree of I'm not totally clear. I'm doing my best, but I'm going to make some mistakes. So it grants clemency. It allows some spaciousness to that leader. And as we grant spaciousness to our leaders, as we grant trust to them, what that does is it makes it easier for us to practice leading out in the unknown. Because what you give to the world is the way you will relate to the world giving to you. What I mean by that is, if you are someone who, let's use a common term that I think is a terrible term. If you're someone that gaslights a lot of people, you're probably going to be pointing out how other people are doing a lot of gaslighting. That's the way it goes. Whereas if you are someone that acts like with a lot of generosity in the face of whatever shows up, you are probably going to be prone to notice all of the generosity coming to you. If you grant a lot of trust and a lot of compassion to your leaders, then you're also going to project that onto the people you're leading. You're going to naturally have a little more space for your own leadership. Whereas if you hold your leaders to an impossibly high standard, you're going to do the same for yourself, and you're going to relate to every little look, every little emotional thing that goes over someone's face. You're going to relate to it through the same lens. You're like, frig, they think I'm an idiot. Frig, I did that, I'm wrong. And your whole leadership becomes tight and constricted. You become constipated as a leader, energetically constipated. So by far the best way to support our leaders is to empower their leadership and to come from that stand, I will find the gold. And kind of corollary to I will find the gold is the stand that there is gold. There is always gold available. That can be your stand for the world, by the way. That can be your stand moment by moment. That's one of the stands I come to every time I receive feedback, even when the feedback is like largely just someone blowing off steam at me, like I'm paying someone else's bill. There's still gold for me there. I can look at that and be like, wow, that really didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. And it really felt like my friend was kind of like taking a lot of their stuff, their childhood wounding out on me. What's the gold in that for me? What gold can I find there? Well, maybe in the future, I could be a little more conscious of when someone's wound feels like it might be present. Maybe in the future, I could be a little more conscious for keeping an eye out for the stuff that might be a bit of a hot button and just be a little more tender around that stuff. Taking on that stand turns you into someone who develops their leadership moment by moment. No matter what the world brings them, they always have an opportunity to grow into more leadership. Powerful place to come from. So it's a fantastic question, Sam. Thank you for asking it. All right, let's go back. We got more Tibby questions. So let me read what Mia's written first. She says, "This is making me think of me and my manager. He says I call him forward and he definitely raises me up. We are growing and climbing together." That's so beautiful, Mia. Thank you for sharing that. I've witnessed, Mia's been in the forge with us for a couple of years now, and I've witnessed Mia really stepping, like practicing leadership, regardless of her position in the hierarchy. The beautiful thing about leadership as a quality of being rather than a position is that the beautiful thing and the challenging thing is that you're called to create leadership moment by moment, regardless of your circumstances. If leadership is about our position in a hierarchy, I get to let myself off the hook constantly, right? I would be leading if not for the fact that my boss is a giant dickhead. My boss doesn't empower me as a leader, so I can't lead. No, absolutely you can lead. Leadership is always available when we relate to it as a way of being. How am I being in this moment, and how could I create more opportunity for leadership? I've witnessed Mia really practice that. And like she says here, it's not always easy. Sometimes the resistance in the room is so tangible you can touch it. Yeah. If it was easy, I wouldn't have a job. We'd all just naturally be like, we wouldn't have words like victim or at the effect. We would just constantly be at cause to create what we want in the world. This wouldn't really be the way it goes. Andrew's sharing, bit of a reality check. I've had a lot of mistrust and judgment of the leaders in my career. In the coaching space, I've been much more open to the leadership and reflections, but it definitely hasn't been an overnight process. Um, I've never seen this go any differently. Anytime I'm working with people and developing their leadership, so in the Forge, before that with accomplishment coaching, when I developed leadership and trained coaches there, people go through like a process, and at the end of that year or whatever, there's like an opportunity for them to step into the next level of their leadership. And almost every time, without fail, there's sort of like a hesitancy that shows up, a resistance, a fear. I'm worried about time. I'm worried about money. I'm worried about this. Oh no, I created like a breakdown where I've got another commitment that now conflicts with what is required of me. You could name all of the millions of different things. And what's happening is we just have natural resistance to stepping into the next level of leadership. And so part of our job as a leader is to really embrace that resistance, to hold it as sacred. It's a beautiful thing this person's got resistance showing up because it tells us that they're stepping into the next level. My job as a leader, your job as a leader, is to really embrace that, to not get caught up in it, to not make it personal, and to not be attached to them choosing into the next level. It's all an option. All right. Great question, Sam. Thank you so much. And Mia's acknowledging she and her manager are both giant dickheads. Excellent. Well played. Okay, Tibby asks, can I talk about self-worth? Why do we put some value on ourselves, and why do we tend to link it with external things and validation? How can we provide support in this area? And if possible, can you explain the connection between fulfillment and self-worth? Fulfillment being the first thing Tibby mentioned. So self-worth is ultimately this, it's not an intellectual thing. It's not having a bunch of memes taped up on your wall that are like, you're enough, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Self-worth is this internal knowing, not intellectual, like a deeper knowing, wisdom, an experience of that you are enough exactly as you are. And there's absolutely nothing more you need to do to be of beautiful value and perfect. That exists by and large in the world largely as an intellectual or aspirational thing. It's something that we pay lip service to, but don't actually have an experience of. That's the way we gain wisdom and experience, by the way, is it starts always first as an intellectual thing. I intellectually understand how a bicycle rights itself and like, oh, there's a gyroscope effect when you're going fast enough that keeps you balanced. Okay, blah, blah, blah. But until I get on the bike, all of that intellectual stuff is all I've got. And then I have to fall off the bike a bunch and go counterintuitively faster, which makes me safer before I can really understand, oh, okay. And then once I understand it at that level, all of the intellectual stuff is irrelevant. It doesn't really matter. It's neat to have. It's interesting to be able to, oh, this is why that's happening, but we don't need it anymore. We have the experience and the beingness of it, the knowing. So most of our experience of self-worth in modern society is really out of whack with the truth of it. We're trained through childhood all the way forward that being good, being of value is a function of stuff like, in the early days, being polite, being proper, not making a loud noise, not throwing too many tantrums, going to sleep on time, right? Like before we've even gotten into our early adolescent years, we're already getting this training. And it's not because our parents are crappy. It's not because we have bad parents. It's just because that's the water we're all swimming in. And second, it's because as a child, we are entirely self-centered. And so if we experience frustration in our parents' voice because we're throwing a tantrum, we make it mean we're doing something wrong. Oh, I'm throwing a tantrum. That's what's coming naturally, but I shouldn't be doing that because my caretaker, who I love, is upset. So I guess, and then, oh, I'll quiet myself. Oh, my caretaker really, she became happy when I did that. Okay, got it. If I'm being quiet, I have value. So like right out of the gate, this training is happening. And then we move from there into school where we are rewarded with getting good grades. We are acknowledged for our good grades. And then we move on to like university, and then we move into careers and on and on and on. So the training is so focused innocently. I submit to the court. Innocently, our training is focused on like your value is a function of what you've done, what you've said, period. I thought there was going to be a third thing there. What you've done and what you've said. And you can even hear this, we then turn it around to like lessons about child rearing. Your children or your students don't listen to what you say, they notice what you do. Not true. They notice who you're being. That's a different conversation. But so first of all, our whole system is geared towards this notion that your self-worth is a function of external stuff. What did you do? And this underneath all of this is like this. I've been trying to distinguish this for a while. I haven't got like a nice pithy way to put it, but underneath all of it is this kind of myth that we live by, which is you being enough exactly as you are, that's too good to be true. That can't be trusted. One of the things that's really neat, I find in my work as a coach, a leader, and over time, like someone leading people towards a spiritual journey, much to my surprise, is as I deepen into my work, as I pull away more and more of my armor, as I become more an expression of what's true for me as like a being, what I find is there's less and less for me to do, and that is all that is required from me. All there really is required from me is to show up and be. Some examples of that, and I'm going to bring this around to what Tibi's asking, but like some examples of that are when I go to an event, my job, it turns out, is to set aside all of the stories and beliefs that I need to be doing something in particular to create clients. The more I can just be in that space and connect with people and talk to them and bring my natural curiosity, which I've done work to allow to just be there, just be hilarious, bring my wit to the space, have fun, be brilliant, just be like that, the more business naturally comes to me. That's crazy. That's completely counter to our entire system, right? Our system says the reason that you're not creating the results you want is because you don't have my 5-point system for creating the results you want. Look, it's even named Adam Quiney's system, built for you by Roger. You should get this system. So it doesn't mean all you have to do is put your hands behind your back, your head, and then relax. We all have work to do because the system has trained us to be so fixated on doing. So a lot of our work is hiring coaches, hiring leaders, working with spiritual advisors that can help us shed all of that stuff. And that is a lot of challenge. So I don't want to suggest this is easy. I don't want to suggest this is just about you sitting on a raft in the middle of a lake, drinking a beer, and life just comes and gives you everything you want. We got work to do. But it turns out a lot of the work is unlearning that training. And once you start to do that more and more and more, you start to discover actually all there really is to do is for me to show up and be. What do I want to do right now? Great, I'm going to go there, I'm going to do it. But more important than what I'm doing, I'm committed to being fully expressed as myself. And that's where we start to have an experience of real deep self-worth. I just want to see how I'm doing with Tibby's question. Why? So he's asking, why do we put some value on ourselves, but why do we tend to link it all with external things and validation? Because that's what we're trained in. And that's what the world around us reflects back, right? It's rare that you get a 360 review where they talk about who you're being and where they would love to see you stepping more into your being, because we're not trained in that. Instead, it's like, you did this really well. We appreciate you doing that well. We would like you to do this more. We would like you to do this less. It's all about what you're doing. And so again, that becomes like the currency with which we determine our value, our self-worth. And it takes a lot of trust to choose out of that system. The nice thing about a collective system that we've all bought into, whether or not it benefits us in the long term, whether or not it's what is called for to step to our next level of evolution, the nice thing about being in that system is that it's what everyone's doing. You know, the nice thing about swimming in the same stream, the same current that all the other fish are swimming in is all the other fish are swimming in it. So you're in a bit of a jet stream. If you go the same direction as all the other fish, it's streamlined, it's easier. You don't have to swim as hard. Whereas if you turn and start swimming this way, counter, like orthogonal to the direction of the fish, first of all, you got to make some energy, you got to change your momentum, and a bunch of fish belt you in the ribs as they're swimming forward and you're going against the current. So that is not easy. That takes courage, it takes support, it takes practice. So that is why, because it's easier. It's the momentum we have. And it provides a bit of safety too, right? Like under this system, I guarantee you, if you attach your self-worth to external rewards, you're probably never really going to get a deep experience of your self-worth, but you probably will amass a bunch of external rewards, and those will help you kind of ensure you're paid for in your retirement and ensure that your next of kin can kind of move forward and all of that sort of stuff. So it's not that there's no benefit to this approach. Otherwise, it wouldn't have come into existence in the first place. It's just that we're starting to reach the limits of it. You can see that. You look around the world and there's people like Trump or all of these magnates, these financial oligarchs from Russia and stuff. There's never enough wealth, right? They're just trying to amass more and more and more and more, and it's not working. And slowly but surely that system's breaking apart. Marete says, our society is built on the withdrawal of love as a form of punishment. Yes, indeed. Validation seeking and people pleasing is a trauma response to not having unconditional love. I agree. Withdrawal of love as a form of punishment. At the heart of anything, that's all punishment ever is. It's withdrawing love. And it also, our society is also based on providing love as a form of reward, which is just the other side of that same coin. On the one side, I withdraw love to punish you, and on the other, I give you love to reward you. And both of those, they're a little unhealthy, because what they do is they preclude the possibility of unconditional love. Love cannot be unconditional if you are providing it to me as a reward, because that would suggest that there is less love available until you rewarded me. So, that's our issue. And we do that for everyone. We do that for ourselves. Hey, Nazma, long time. Raf's saying, I feel I need constant reminders of this. Me too. And Mia's agreeing. And this isn't when all the fish are swimming in one direction. We have to constantly turn ourselves to swim in a different direction. We need ongoing support. Left to our own devices, we will just naturally get pulled back into the current. This is like being in an ocean and sort of trying to orient yourself a particular way when the current is naturally going to turn you back towards the direction it's going. It requires continual input by you to actually face counter to the current. This is why structures like a coach are so powerful, is because it gives us ongoing support. Week after week, we show up and our coach keeps supporting us to notice where we've fallen off the path, which is a beautiful thing because that's how we find our way back onto the path. Nazma says, how do we start to change from the extrinsic kind of form of validation to a more intrinsic one? So the first step, I'm not going to go too far down this path because it can kind of blow up into something much larger, and I won't be able to do that justice. But the first step is what I believe. Um, Let me have a sip of tea and just mull on this. I've got an answer. I just need to get it. Let words start to form. So the first thing that I think is helpful to know in trying to figure out like what is my innate worth, the first thing that can be helpful to know is that we don't see our value. We don't see the light that we radiate into the world. And the reason we don't see it is because it's like a light bulb that sits behind our head. This metaphor is from a book called True Purpose. And it's also, I use it in this rad book right here. Who do you think you are? Adam Quiney. This guy. That's who I think I am. And he's amazing. Um, so imagine a light bulb that shines a beautiful color of light, your unique color of light that sits right back here. You can't see it in the mirror. It's invisible to you, but it sits back there. And every time you enter a room, you see people in that room are like, ooh, the room just got a little more magenta-y, if that's your color. And every time you leave the room, they're like, oh, the room just got a little less magenta-y. They can distinguish that because they get the opportunity to be in that room when you're not. They notice the experience that happens, the shift that occurs when you enter a room, and they notice the shift that occurs when you leave the room. You never get that, and you never will. You will maybe on some psychedelic stuff. That's a bit of a different conversation, but like easier just for us to say, you'll never get that experience. From the moment you were born to the moment you will pass off of this mortal coil, you experience the world through your light. Your light is cast everywhere you go. So you never get the gift, so to speak, of being in a room when you're not. And so as a result, it can be helpful to realize I am not going to be a very good correspondent for what my light is. I'm not going to be able to distinguish that myself. And so that is another part that makes it hard for us to get our own self-worth. We can't really see it. We almost take it for granted. However, we can take on exercises, practices, get supported to start to see this and to trust it. And so one of the exercises I always do when clients start with me is an exercise designed to help them see through the support of other people kind of the color of their light bulb. What is the beauty? What is the gifts that I bring into the space, into the world? And the easiest way to do that is to ask people, what qualities do I bring into a room? What shows up when I do? And then let them answer it. The challenge about that practice is most of us have learned it's needy to ask for like an acknowledgement. It's needy and I shouldn't need it. We've got all of this baggage attached to just letting someone love us. And by love, I mean the simplest form, which is simply to witness you. For me to simply see you as you are, that is love. To see and accept you exactly as you are. And to a deeper practice of love is for me to practice seeing through the stuff you're doing on the surface to the truth of who you are at the core. And that's what that question invites people to do for us. What shows up when I do? What qualities do I bring into the room? We're just asking them, what are the qualities I bring into the space? And often when I give people this practice, they get squirrely and they want to change it. They want to ask questions like, what do I need to do to make myself better? No, fuck that. Don't do that. That is our attempt to create a degree of comfort for ourselves because we're uncomfortable with just letting someone reflect our beauty to us. We're uncomfortable just trusting someone to give us love, full stop. So as a result, we try to use it for an opportunity to improve ourselves, to do feedback. That's not self-love. That is not self-worth. That is taking us away from self-worth to this external validation kind of thing. Oh, what do I need to do to improve? Because if I did that, then I would be, oh shit, look at that. We just fell all the way back. So simply asking that question of people is a beautiful place to start because what it does is it basically it acts as a mirror, gives us an opportunity. Raf's done it, says, I very much appreciate that exercise. It gives us a real opportunity to see like, oh, that's the beauty I have to bring to the space. And from there, we can start to, like our life slowly can start to be about how do I be those qualities regardless of what I'm doing. I'm going to take a bit of a digression here to talk about our zone of genius versus our zone of excellence and how people get that wrong. So what I've just described, well, if you ask people that question, not over email, but face-to-face or on the phone or Zoom, something with immediacy, not something they can think about a whole bunch. If they start to think about it, they're going to mess it all up. Don't let people get intellectual about this. What people give back to us are qualities of being, an experience that is created in our presence. Our quality of being, that is what we bring into the space as a human being. Just like part of this thing here and this thing here, they kind of share a similar quality that we would call rock. Even though they're made of different materials, even though they look completely different, they're not even the same shape, still on some level we have an experience when we look at these two things of rock. When you get to be with me, and I'm not doing a bunch of stuff to distract you, I'm just being fully expressed, you probably get an experience of qualities like connection, brilliance, wit, presence. What's the other one that I bring to this space? Oh, passion. Passion, of course. Go on, dummy. I'm just teasing. I'm not a dummy. I'm awesome. So these people reflect qualities of being to you. And the beautiful thing about a quality of being is you can be true to who you are naturally and innately, regardless of what you're doing. And it's in bringing that being that we will discover more and more our value is simply in showing up in being. And we as humans do a whole bunch of stuff to get in the way of that. That's the hard part. That's the unlearning that we have to do. But to go from here to the zone of genius sort of thing I want to talk about, Gay Hendricks in his book, The Big Leap, created this distinction between our zone of excellence and our zone of genius. And our zone of excellence is, as he describes it, it's like that stuff we've learned to do that we're good at. In fact, we might be great at it. And a lot of us are like making our living doing that zone of excellence stuff. But it's not our zone of genius. Our zone of genius is the stuff that only you on this planet can do. It's the stuff that is just so natural to you, you might look right past it. And he asserts our work that really sets us free is to move from our zone of excellence to our zone of genius. The zone of excellence is in fact really tricky because you're good at it, maybe even great, but it's not the only work on this planet that you're here to do. And so people get stuck in their zone of excellence. They make a lot of money there, but they don't shift into their zone of genius, their fullest expression. The trouble I find is that people, when they're like, what is my zone of genius? First of all, they try to figure it out themselves. And remember, based on the light I've just described, they're not going to be able to see it. The second thing is because our entire world is so focused on what we're doing, external validation, that's where we look for a zone of genius. So it's sort of like the drunk looking underneath the street lamp for their keys. Even though they lost their keys way over there in the grass, this is where there's light. So this is where they look. So that's what we innocently try to do. We read that book or we hear that distinction. We're like, all right, what is my zone of genius? And then we look to the stuff we do. Oh, it's planning travel. I'm really good at that. I love doing that. That must be it. I assert that's not the case. And in fact, that's missing the mark. It's okay. You're not wrong for it, but it's just a miss. And the reason it's a miss is the real question we should be asking ourselves is, when I'm doing that thing I love, how am I being? What is the way of being that shows up for me when I'm doing that thing, planning travel, being with kids, teaching, whatever? And then we want to separate that way of being from what we're doing. The beautiful thing about our zone of genius is it's a way of being. It's how we are being when we are fully expressed, regardless of what we're doing. And if you start to look at your zone of genius through that lens, which, by the way, is not the lens that Gay and some other people, I did a bunch of research on that for this book because I was doing a comparison at the back. Who do you think you are in the ontological model compare to all these other things? So I was reading a bunch on zone of genius. This is not the way that those authors advocate doing it. It's the way I advocate doing it. If we can get clear on who we're being and relate to that as our zone of genius, then the beautiful thing is our zone of genius is available everywhere. You don't have to arrange your life so that you only plan travel. What you get as an opportunity is the same experience you have when you are planning travel with everything you're doing. When you're cleaning out that urinal with a special toothbrush designed to clean out the urinal, you can have the same experience as you have when you're planning travel. And it'll make for a really weird conversation with people when you tell them, my zone of genius is available to me when I clean the urinal, blah, blah, blah. But it's all available. And that's the magic of this kind of underlying type of validity that comes from our being. Who am I to be as opposed to what is there for me to do? You guys have written some good stuff. Andrew wrote, the good old 180 switch. I'll just ask this person about how they see me via text message or email rather than having to ask the questions in a conversation. Yeah. Andrew's talking about the importance for immediacy in that conversation, right? What shows up when I do, what qualities do I bring into the room? When we bring that into like an iPhone, an email kind of format, it's really safe for us. I don't have to be with the vulnerability of me asking this question. I don't have to be with you being with my vulnerability. I don't have to be with your vulnerability. It's all safe. And if it's all safe, there's probably not much risk and not much at stake and not much to be gained. We got to have that conversation face to face. We're on the phone. Alexandra, let me have a sip of tea here. Alexandra writes 100% on the neediness thing. We think and most of the times are taught to completely shut down in front of external feedback when we look to diminish our need for external validation. We become sort of inert or immutable, good word, immutable in front of others' opinions. I don't think that's actually possible or natural. Yeah. Yeah. One of the ways we've sort of trained ourselves to be with people's opinions is almost like this. We become Teflon. When you see people, I see this marketed a lot in coaching is this sort of like ability to nothing gets to you. I'm unflappable. Yeah, that's cool, but you become very impervious. That was how I lived my life prior to getting a taste of transformation in my mouth. You couldn't touch me. There was nothing you could say that would throw me off. I would be charming and glib and funny and likable, maybe, maybe not, maybe an arrogant asshole, but like it didn't matter. And part of how that got created for me was like the safety of that because I really wanted people to like me and I didn't like that vulnerability, and so I layered this on top of it. And part of it was like I remember Vince Vaughn in the movie Swingers, and like, man, that guy's just able to flow with nothing gets him. That's so cool. I remember the appreciating like lawyers sort of like standing firm in this world of logic and no emotionality. Oh, so clean, so easy. And the third thing I remember was my dad telling me about this guy. We still joke about him. This guy my dad knew when he was at university. I think my mom knew him too. And he said like he was just a pompous ass and nothing would flap him. Like you'd go to a party and he could say like how do you like me? How do you feel about me? And you could say I think you're a pompous ass who exudes confidence, and he'd smile and go like glad you're enjoying me. And I thought, man, that's cool. That would be a way I could be where nothing could, I would be able to rise above all of the mess of human interactions and intimacy and all that. And so I did. And I became impervious to the world, and consequently, nothing ever touched me. So my life, I became I walled off from the world. It was like there was this glacier, this glass wall, bulletproof wall between me and the world. And I could sort of interact with it, kind of, but like there was no heart to heart at all available. So, bit of a digression there, but that kind of speaks to what Alexandra's talking about. And she said, I don't think it's actually possible or natural. I think it's possible, but I don't think it's very natural. And I think the consequences of doing that, of cocooning yourself away from the world, we don't realize the consequences of strategies that we adopt until far down the road. And then by the time we get there, we're sort of like, how did I get here? Why does life feel so gray? And I think the consequences of doing so are really grave. You can see this. Lawyers tend to be some of the best examples for this because there's other careers where it's also a part, but like in law, it's kind of baked in. In law, the more you can remove yourself from the mess of the facts and stuff and not be unaware of them, but sort of like operate in the clean, cold realm of logic and airtight debate, the more you can do that, the better you are to navigate whatever's showing up, the better you're able to deal with an aggressive client, yours, the better you are to be able to deal with an aggressive client on the other side, the better you are able to deal with an opposing lawyer who's showing up like a moron or whatever. Like you can just rise above it all. And so when you meet, like it can be an interesting thing to notice when you meet people that have been in law for a long time. My experience, not always, but often is like there's a grayness to them. That grayness might not even, sometimes it's physical. They actually look like if you go and watch the documentary on Jeffrey Epstein Alan Dershowitz, who was a lawyer for a lot of people that have gotten off with a lot of stuff. You can even do a Google search on Alan Dershowitz, but like his whole face looks gray. His nose looks like it's literally dying on his face. And there is this grayness to their energy. There's a lack of color. And and those people often start to abuse substances because those give them access back to the world that they long ago cut out. When you drink, when you do drugs, it kind of breaks through some of those control-based barriers that you set up and gave you access. I smoked a lot of pot when I was at the height of that glass wall because that allowed me to get through it, to reconnect to creativity, to my inspiration, to all of that sort of stuff. Cammie just sharing, I love how you show the world how not to be mean to yourself, such as, Adam, you speaking, I'm not a dummy, I'm excellent. It is so important to speak to and about yourself with all the love and kindness. Your subconscious hears you loud and clear. Yeah, thanks for that, Cammie. And Cammie's so right. And um, it can be fun for me sometimes to acknowledge, like, I can be a bit of a dummy, and there's such freedom in that. Not that I am stupid, I'm a brilliant guy, but like I can do stupid things too. Bay and I have this ongoing joke right now where we were at a picnic, just her and she was joking how sometimes she looks at me and she's like, how could someone so smart do something so dumb? And the joke for us is just that anytime I have a white shirt, it's like I'm a magnet for salsa, or like I always get something on it. And and yet I can't stop wearing white. So I enjoy the fact that I can be a bit of a bozo sometimes. I've learned to love that part about myself, and there's such freedom in that. Alexandra saying, yeah, becoming Teflon in front of others' feedback is just another flavor of the same hypersensitivity to external feedback. I think this is the case of the opposite of the same. Yes, Alexandra has nailed it. Hit the nail directly on the head. Becoming impervious to any feedback is fragility does one of two things. So when we are fragile, when we have no ability to be with something, we either become kind of flooded and drowned in that thing, or we become completely unable to allow its presence at all. So someone who's really brilliant and becomes very afraid of looking stupid, you will find these people either constantly, usually it's a bit of both because it kind of wraps around. This is how we end up with an over and under expressing shadow. But people that are really brilliant, that are terrified of being looking or being stupid, will on one hand be kind of like, I don't want to look stupid. They'll over prepare. They'll do all this stuff to not occur stupid. And they also become hyper aggressive towards stupidity. They hate the morons. I want to strangle all the morons. And that goes doubly to themselves. So they lose all capacity to be with anything they relate to as stupidity. They don't have the capacity to laugh at the fact that they're kind of a dum-dum sometimes, just like every single one of us is. And that can be a beautiful thing. So it's the height of fragility. And Andrew Mundy's saying, I definitely felt that grayness while working in corrections, that you had to be stoic to survive in that environment. It's been quite a shift since leaving that profession. Yes, indeed. I can only imagine. Let's see if we can get one more before we go. I've got a lunch date at 12, and then I'm going to get on that one wheel and scoot around town, go around the water. It's kind of funny because the one wheel, this device, for those that didn't catch it at the start, is the new toy I bought, which I'm loving, but it takes practice. It's remarkable how fast you can learn, and as you start to trust the device and its mechanics, you can you lean and it just balances for you. It's an incredible thing. But some things are more tricky than you might think, like going up a little curb, not like a flat edge one, but like just a rounded curve like that. And I was riding around my neighborhood last night, and there was a couple out for a walk, and I could see there's like this footpath I was going to go along, and they were walking quite slow. And I was like, okay, I think I want to get in front of them just so that I'm not kind of breathing down their shoulders, and so I kind of got in front of them, and then there's a little curb, like literally no bigger than that. And I went up it, and then I jumped right off of my device, and my device fell over because I haven't learned how to do that. So just learning to love myself in those moments and laugh. All right, so last one. Tibby says, can I distinguish between ego, confidence, and egotism/arrogance? And people often use the phrase, he's got a really big or a really strong ego. But I'm guessing they really mean he's being egotistical and or arrogant, or that people with low confidence have a big ego or something like that. Can you say more? Yes. So here's the first thing is that we all have giant egos, all of us. And um, the more you lean into transformational work, the more your ego learns from that. Like your ego is brilliant. It's a part of you. So there's really not the notion like that person there has a big ego or they're very blah 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 blah. I had to fix my mallet. My tassel was coming undone. Um, that's a bit of a it's a like a misnomer, really. What is true is that in certain situations where there is something scary showing up, like a confronting moment or experience for a particular person, their ego is going to fire up. It's going to show up and be like, all right, I'm ready. I'm going to keep us safe because that's the ego's job. And the only real difference is that what's scary for me is not necessarily what's scary for you. But make no mistake, there are tons of things that are scary for you, just like there's tons of things that are scary for me. Second, my defense strategies to alleviate my fears will look different than yours. So like brilliance being a part of who I am for the world, one of my core fears is that I might be stupid, right? That's a bit of a negation. For smart people, for people with a lot of brilliance, they're often quite afraid of looking stupid. However, for someone whose part of their essence is generosity, they're not going to worry so much about looking stupid. They're more worried about looking selfish or even being selfish. I might actually be a selfish person. So one, the situations where my fear will get triggered will look different than that person's. I might be at a party around a bunch of physicists and be like, frig, these people are talking about black holes and singularities and stuff. I'm worried about looking stupid. My ego is going to come online to alleviate that fear. That other person, probably not such an issue. But if we take them to like a Christmas party and there's people giving gifts, then that person's fear might be like, look at the gift they brought. Look at the gift they brought. Oh my God, you only brought soup. You're such a horrible person. And then their thing's going to kick up. So it's not that we have a big or a small or whatever ego. It's that our fear shows up in different places and our strategies to alleviate our fear look different. My strategy to alleviate my fear of looking stupid might be to like make a point of kind of subtly / not subtly point out how smart I am. So I might be talking to these physicists and I might be like, well, as someone with an advanced degree in law, I often think, right, I'm kind of subtly drawing some attention over to this thing, which is basically like, just so you know, I'm not stupid. That's what my fear is doing. My ego is doing that. And someone who their fear is more like in that Christmas party, they suddenly run out and come back and they're like, I bought ice cream sandwiches for everyone. They're not going to be as triggered by my flavor of fear as they will by someone else with the same kind of fear. So I become especially tuned to other people doing stuff to make themselves look smart or make themselves look dumb. And the way this works is it's a little bit like if I have an instrument tuned to the note of C and I'm playing it, I'm going to be better able to hear when another instrument tuned to that same note is sharp or flat. Whereas if I'm playing my clarinet tuned to C and you're playing your guitar tuned to G, it's going to be a little harder for me to notice where you're sharp and where I'm flat. So the same thing's true for our fear and when we're trying to compensate for our fear. If I'm at that party trying to make a point of being not looking stupid because I'm afraid and my ego's kicked up, then someone else who's got that same kind of fear might be over there like, what a loser. Look at this guy trying to make sure that we all know that he's smart. This guy's so obnoxious. The reason I'm so obnoxious to him is because he has the same fear. And so people like that will tend to note, oh, what a big ego. So that's one, we've laid some foundation. Rich sharing, he's loving how I've gone full medicine man on us. All I've done is put on a shirt and a mala. I love you too, Rich. And Rich also plays the clarinet. Me too. I played alto initially, and then I moved to bass clarinet, which I liked. But these days I'm a drummer. I'm all about that drum. I love drumming. My favorite instrument's the cajon, the box that you sit on and bang. So that is how ego actually is versus big, small. The second part is that I think it's a more helpful way to relate to people. Like it's a kinder, more compassionate way. And from kindness, compassion, and love, we create more space for ourselves and other people, and we get a different experience, like a better experience, a nicer, softer experience. So I think it's a kinder, more compassionate way to relate to people is rather than saying they have a big ego, to just sort of hold it like, oh, that person is often confronted by their fear. And um, our fear never goes away. We learn to be with our fear at whatever level of game we're currently playing in. So when I first started coaching, telling anyone that I was a coach was very scary for me because I was afraid of looking stupid, all of that stuff, right? It was very hard. And then as time went on and I got supported by my coach and I did some work and I started to just lean out into my fear and do it, I became comfortable going to a networking event, just telling people, yeah, I'm a coach and letting them have whatever experience they had. However, now if you take me from that arena, which I'm now comfortable in, plunk, and you put me into a new, bigger arena where I'm surrounded by, I don't know, presidents of the countries of the world, we'll just say, all of the UN leaders. That fear is going to be like, yo, remember me? I'm back. I'm playing a bigger game and the same fears are there. So I've overcome my fear in this small pond, but now I'm in a bigger pond. And so, yeah, someone may be like confronted by their fear here, and you might not be. And it can be very easy for us to kind of pedestal ourselves and get a little arrogant, like, yeah, I don't have that same confrontation. But again, if you're looking for the gold in your own life, the opportunity there might be like, what would I need to do to put myself into some situations that would drive my fear up the way their fear is being driven up? That's a call forward for you, right? As opposed to us judging someone else for the bigness of their ego. One of the, if your ego isn't showing up anywhere in life, if you don't have any places in your life where you're like, I'm really like, this is edgy for me, consider that's your ego has got you. What your ego's managed to do is like, hey, just hang out in this pond. It's a perfect size for you. It's really nice. Nothing scary here. Everything's nice and orderly and contained. That's a big ego. Your ego's gotten you. So my intention in breaking it down this way is to like really, when we notice ourselves casting judgment on people like that, they have a big ego. One, to start with like, no, they're confronted. That's what's going on. And what is it that might be getting confronted? If they're talking about themselves a lot, they're probably worried about feeling invisible or being irrelevant. And then we can ask ourselves questions like, if I was worried about being irrelevant or feeling like I don't matter, what would I need to alleviate that? Like, and that can give you a sort of a like, oh, who could I be for this person? I could really listen to them intently. That would be one thing. And the second thing is when we notice ourselves judging someone for the size of their ego, we can bring it back over here. Hey, where do I need to take a step into something bigger so that I get to show up as courageously as that person's showing up? Okay, this tassel on this mallet is starting to unwind. I'm worried it's going to fall. Oh, it has already unwound. Okay, well, that happened. That's what happens when you buy stuff on Etsy sometimes. Bay's going to laugh. She's going to say everything you buy, Adam, falls to pieces in your hands. Okay, I'm going to go and have lunch in Sydney. I hope you guys have an amazing weekend. Thanks for hanging out. Big thanks to Andrew, Sam, and Tibby for your awesome questions. Thanks for providing all of us with like really juicy stuff to kind of like distinguish and look at. And like every time any of us share a question like that, like courageously, can you talk about this? That's leadership. And it allows all of us to kind of like do some distinguishing together in these moments. So thank you. Love you guys.